Welcome to Gene and Mike do the New York Times crossword. Gene is off tonight, so I'm doing solo duty for Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. So I must say it certainly feels like a Friday, but I know it's a Thursday because of this crossword, a magnificent piece of work by Adam Wagner. There are lots of great clues throughout the entire grid, but what makes this puzzle especially unique is the theme. And it's complicated, and without Gene here, I'm going to have to do this on my own. So hopefully this will make sense. If not, listeners, we always encourage you to go to xwordinfo.com where you can find the entire crossword filled out, and we always provide links to it in the show notes. Anyway, basically there were a number of answers running across that had two circled squares. The one on the left always contained an L. The one on the right always contained an R, so L and R. And each clue was really two clues, let's call them subclues, separated by a slash. Now, the answer to the first subclue included the letter in the first circled square, but not the second. The answer to the second subclue included the letter in the second circled square, but not the first. Yeah, we definitely need an example for this. Let's see. 16 across was played a bar game / yawn. All right. And the letters turned out to be Limbored. Well, played a bar game, you're going to ignore the R. So you're just going to get Limboed or limboed, which is a bar game. And for yawn, we're going to ignore that first L. So it's going to be Imbored. I'm bored. Not only that, but when you look at the down clues, every clue with one of those letters L or R also had a down clue that also had two meanings. They did the same trick. So, for example, one down was southwestern neckwear / baby's foot warmer. And now there was an L in there. And if you included it, you got BOLOTIE, bolo tie. That's southwestern neckwear. If you ignored it, you got baby's foot warmer was a BOOTIE, a booty. Yeah, you really do need to take a look at the Xword info, the completed grid in order to make sense of this. Hopefully you've got one that you filled out yourself, or if not, like I said, Xword info is your friend. When you finish the crossword, those circled squares started to flash. First the L and then the R, and they would flash in sequence like that. And there was a reason for that, and it was in the revealer, 60 across. Directional signals that flash on and off, as suggested by the circles in this puzzle, and the answer was blinkers. So that was quite cute. Took me a while to sort of get a handle on what was going on there, but the crosses weren't particularly difficult. So it was definitely doable. Some particular clues of note. We had 4 across. It gets dropped in a pot, and that was Chip. It's like, oh, that kind of a pot. We had 7 down. Actor Pascal of The Mandalorian, Pedro, my idol. I really loved him in The Mandalorian. Highly recommended, by the way. 10 down was, don't come in here. And the first thought was, my first answer was, I'm embarrassed to say, I'm naked, which fitted, but it turned out it was the much more friendly stay out. 14 across was lesson in strength, so I immediately thought ebb, except I needed 4 letters for the answer. So then I thought tire, but that still didn't work. The answer was fade. Turned out eventually I was able to get to use tire in the crossword. 35 across, this was one of those themed answers. Formal dress code / what may burn in a drag race. And the answer was either going to be black tie or back tire. I had no idea that a tire would actually burn, but that's what they say, so I will believe them. We had 11 down. That was State Park in the Santa Monica Mountains called Topanga. Sounds like a fun place to visit. And we had, let's see, what else was interesting here? 20 across. Go pillaging, maraud, Boy, that took me a long time to get. Great word, though, maraud. Don't know how I'm going to be able to use it in a sentence, but in casual conversation with others, but I'm going to try. 23 across was fully add up. For some reason, I went for toted, T-O-T-E-D. And that meant that 17 down, the animal whose Greek name is the etymology of the word Arctic would have been beer. And I was trying to think of the beer animal. And even though Wisconsin's got a lot of breweries, I decided there wasn't one. But there was definitely a bear, and so toted became total to make that all work. We had 22 across, swerve as an airplane, and the answer was yaw. I don't think that's really quite the right definition of yaw. If you can imagine an airplane just sitting, pretend you've got an airplane sitting on a table, and you take a pin and run it through the top of the airplane right down through to the bottom of it. That plane can then swivel right and left. That's yaw. It's not really swerving. It's just rotating about that particular axis. That has been your fun aviation fact for the day. We had 24 down. That was idle. Or actually, this is again another one of these theme clues. It was either idle or texter's chuckle. So for idle, I wanted it to be loaf, but that didn't work because when that last letter had to be an L. Turned out it was lol. And if you, so idle is L-O-L-L, of course. When you remove the L, you simply get L-O-L, which is indeed a texter's chuckle. It's sort of hard to say. Texter's chuckle. We had 35 down. I think this is the one gimme in the crossword. National Audubon Society subject, bird. First I thought that was too easy, but nope, it was in fact correct. We had 42 down, no lie, and I was all ready to go with no cap because we just had that bit of slang a few days ago, but it turned out they were being a little bit more pedantic here. The answer was for real. Right next to it, we had 43 down, them's fighting words, and that was en garde. I thought that was sort of cute. Both of those crossed 48 across, gymnast Biles, and I thought, oh, it's Simone. But then I discovered I don't know how to spell Simone. Eventually, I was able to figure it out, thanks mainly to the crosses. 44 down, one of my favorite fish. It was anglerfish locale, in fact, and the answer was deep sea. Those anglerfish have like a little flashlight on their head, which is very useful because it helps them attract other prey. A few other clues of note. We had 46 down. That was Portuguese currency before the euro, and that was the escudo, which I don't think I've heard of before, but I was thinking maybe it was going to be like, I don't know, the lira or something like that, but nope, escudo. And finally, we had 62 across, features of many war hero statues, and that was steeds, which in retrospect, of course, makes perfect sense. And this was a perfect crossword by Adam Wagner, known for creating really fun and exciting crossword puzzles for the solver, and presumably also for the programmers at the New York Times, because they had to figure out how to make those squares flash. Good job, one and all. That is it for today. Hopefully Gene will be back tomorrow, and we'll be talking about Friday's crossword, so be sure and tune in back then.